Let's look at how devices in the rack behave and how to lay out your rack the way you want to. Devices in the rack can be moved by clicking and dragging, either on the instrument itself or on its mix channel. Holding Control or Command while dragging will duplicate the device. You can drag a device into a new rack column by dragging onto the wooden divider. New devices can then be dragged into this column, or you can create new columns by either dragging in between or at the end of the last column. Clicking the small arrow at the top of any device will collapse or expand it, while Alt-clicking will collapse or expand all devices in a single column. This can be a great way of getting an overview of your rack, especially as your project gets bigger. Now, as the number of devices and columns in your project increases, you can use the navigator to pan around the rack. You can also click and drag on the wooden divider, or you can use the scroll wheel on your mouse or the scrolling gesture on your trackpad, using up and down to scroll vertically, and shift while scrolling to move horizontally. One important thing to be aware of is that changing the order of devices in the rack won't change the order in the track list or the mixer. So as you can see in this example, I have 4 devices numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you can see that order is reflected in the mixer, as well as the sequencer. Now I'll change the order in the rack. And you'll see that in the mixer and sequencer views, the order remains unchanged. To fix this, go to the rack, select your devices, right-click them, and choose Sort Selected Device Groups. Now the sequencer and mixer views reflect the order of the devices in the rack. It's a slightly confusing system for new users, so it's worth practicing and getting comfortable with, especially if you're finding larger projects difficult to navigate. Another thing worth mentioning is naming, as this can also be a source of confusion for new and old users alike. The name on the instrument label is what you see in the sequencer, and the mixer channel will take its name from the instrument, unless you manually change it. So let's look at what happens if I rename the mixer channel. The instrument name remains unchanged, as does the sequencer track. So what I've actually done is rename the mixer channel. If I wanted to change the name of the instrument, say baseline, you'll see that the mix channel remains unchanged. To restore the name link between the mixer channel and the instrument, all I need to do is double-click the mix channel name, delete it, and press Enter. Now the name link is restored, and whatever I call the instrument or the sequencer track will be reflected in the mixer. Again, it's a slightly odd way of working, although there might be times when you want to have a separate naming scheme for the mixer and sequencer. In those instances, it'd be useful, but for the most part, you're going to want to remember to always rename using either the label on the instrument or the sequencer track. Time now for a break before we dig a little deeper in the next video.